Good evening. You are listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Xtreme Studios in the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have with me today on Father's Day 2023 a special very guest, Eazy-E, Eric Breen from the Midwest, RDV, also from the Midwest, and of course the young 20-something Professor Pixel, who knows a thing or two about Commando. At least I hope he does, because that's tonight's annual movie marathon that we like to do. See Commando and talk about it, and half jokingly talk about how great this is as a Father's Day movie. And I'd like to start off, gentlemen, by just going over a few things too, some note keeping before we go around for our first impressions. Obviously, here on the Xtreme Movie Show, we like to say we're 80s based and we bounce around a lot. It's amazing the type of things people look up, and most recently we've done a Treat Williams retrospective because he recently passed. And I thought, damn, he'd be a great father, and maybe he is in Everwood. I don't know, but just the timing of it made me think. And then, of course, there's the old Humphrey Bogart movie, who we've talked about a lot, Casablanca, which is getting a lot of hits lately for some reason. So definitely people are starved for a good, wholesome Father's Day movie. And RDV, you and I have always talked about how it's hard to find a good, wholesome one. But I'd like to start off actually with our special guest, Eazy Eric Breen, talking about Commando, because we've had some technical difficulties over the years trying to coordinate this. But damn it, half jokingly, this is a great Father's Day movie. But what's your take on this movie? What makes it special for you?
I saw it the year it came out. I saw it in the theaters, and it was, I don't know what it was. This was the first Schwarzenegger vehicle after Terminator. So it was his first real movie as an action movie hero, and it had everything you could ask for in an 80s movie. You could see the next pun coming a scene away. Everything about it is just like it doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it's not. And as I was telling Venkman, I said, it's the Wolverine of movies. It's the best there is at what it does.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely well said too. I'm gonna comment on that here in a moment, but RDV, come on, man, you and I talk about this stuff all the time. What's your take on this?
Well, you know what my take is. My take is pretty much this is probably the best Arnold's been in a movie, as far as action goes, everything. He tried to redo it again with Last Action Hero, but it's not the same. This is just straight up Arnold being Rambo, in the sense, the fact that Keanu Reeves had to make 2 movies with John Matrix's name to try and be popular shows how much he loves this movie.
Now, Pixel always advertise you as the young 20-something, so you represent an entirely different generation than some of us here in this chat. Was this a first watch for you?
So, no, it was partially a first watch because I watched part of it last year, if you remember.
Because I recall, that's why I'm asking. Yeah,
I recalled being here last year, and I feel I must go ahead and disavow whatever I said then, because I didn't fully watch it. I skipped around, which I had to, given the time constraints, but I actually sat down, watched the full thing through and through this year.
So it is a first watch for you?
Basically, yeah.
Wow, this is pretty interesting, because I tell you, we talk about milestones in movies, and here on Xtreme Movie Show, we joked about how the action movies evolved from the 70s, 80s, at least from the American version of it, from the martial arts to guns and explosions. And to me, this movie represents that, especially for Arnold. I mean, I don't think you can make a better fantasy film than Conan. And again, after Terminator, which is a great movie, you've got this thing here. But this is what movies became in the 80s. It's the effect of all that stuff leading up to it. And of course, Arnold will then successfully transition over into comedy and other things later too. So hats off to him for being able to do it. But I just got to sit here and say that, taking Arnold aside and taking Father's Day into account here, we joke about all the cute stuff with all the deer in the front and the ice cream on the nose, all that goofy ass shit. But he is so into his character. It's great. And he's looking real juicy here in this film. Let's be honest. The dude's, looking fantastic. He definitely didn't have a problem showing off his physique, which any modern day father should be. But the supporting cast in here is great. You got Sully. You got the guy with the really horrible sort of Spanish accent, Colonel guy. You've got all the disposable soldiers. I mean, it's amazing just how great everybody else is. And of course, Bennett's the main man with his chainmail. crocheted chainmail vest. It's crocheted because I think that's where you only use one device, and knitting would be two for the technical people out there. But I got to put this out there just to get it off the chest, because it's something somebody had brought up a while ago. There's a lot of alleged homoeroticism in this movie, and you see a lot of cut up clips on YouTube about Bennett screaming, John, I want you to put the knife in," and all this stupid stuff. And I watched a lot of interviews today with Vernon Wells, the guy that played him, and he's like, no, that was just what people read into it. It's not like that way at all. It's just a bunch of shit talking. And I agree, because watching this movie, you got to have a good bad guy. And people might think he's the least intimidating of the 80s bad guys, but he's perfect at what he did. Because I tell you, Eric, you probably remember Mad Max 2. I mean, Jesus Christ, he was terrifying in that, I thought. What was your take on just Vernon Wells in general?
He was, again, perfect for this movie. It was because he had almost like a hero complex for Matrix, but but at the same time, he couldn't wait for their fight to the death that he knows is inevitable. It's just the little things, like when the scene when I it's either right before or right after he finds out that Arnold is back on the compound, when one of the general soldiers is talking about how when he stabbed like little girls, it's like butter and
slit their throat. It's like butter.
And he just says, put your toy away, and then he starts making fun of him. He goes, Matrix and all, I would kill all of you and without catching all breath or whatever it is he says. It's just like, again, it's everything. He's perfect for that, because he isn't big and muscular like Arnold. In fact, he's got the quintessential dad bod.
He does.
I mean, and he hasn't missed dessert in years, but he looks like a badass.
That's one of my favorite scenes, though. It's was it put the knife away and shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I love listening to your little percent soldiers. They think they're tough. If the Matrix are here, he would destroy them all. I mean, he's just so casual about it.
Yeah, he's Vernon Wells' character in here. Is pretty much Bennett. He really worships John Matrix, but he also hates him because John Matrix would cut him from the team because he's a psychopath. He enjoys killing a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So this whole thing, he's like, he's like, Bennett, in the airport, he's like, Bennett, they offered to pay me money, but I said I'd do it for free. It's like it's like an idiot.
Did anybody notice that he's talking about? He cut me from the team because he said I like killing a little bit too much, as he racks up a triple-digit body count.
Yeah.
Himself. It's like that's what made that much better, because this is Clive Owen in Shoot 'Em Up. Body count.
Yep. He never changes the clip in this too, which is awesome about these. Every gun he has, and then there's a one where he has the bullet being fed it, the rounds, and you watch it. It's like in some scenes, it's the same length for 5 minutes, and then it'll cut to, it'll be shorter than the other one, but then other times you'll see it wrapped around his hand in the end. It's like it's so inconsistent as far as the length of the belt being fed in with bullets. You can tell it's fake. Not only that, is like there's other scenes in the movie where he goes up, lied to, Sully. After he kills Sully, he goes over and they're like, oh, our car's destroyed. So she's like, well, needing a car. He's like, don't worry. He pushes Sully's car over, which has significant damage to the door from where he was ramming it. So, but when they go to drive away, the door is magically fixed. There's no way that engine would start. Anyone with common sense, when you put an engine on its side, especially like all the damage, all the gasoline's pouring out of it, and all it's bad. But like you said, you really don't mind it because it's just funny. This is like Hot Shots, but like a serious attempt at Hot Shots.
Right.
Excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt again, but the scene you're referring to, Bangman,
Yeah.
if we're looking for realism, didn't happen because both Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ray Don Chong were killed instantly when their little sports car hit the tree at 70 miles an hour.
He has a seatbelt, but she doesn't have a seat.
I thought he took the seat. I thought he took the seat out of his
He
side
ripped it
so he
out,
could fit in it.
right? Yeah, he ripped it out.
He threw it out. Yeah.
Why did you know there was a time when you could drive cars and you didn't have to wear a seatbelt?
Yeah, but
yes, I did.
Yeah. So from the very beginning of this movie, you see Arnold showing up his strength. He's carrying the freaking log with the heavy chainsaw in his other hand, and then when the mall scene, you see he's being attacked by the security guards. It's like I love the one guy. He's talking like dicks. He's like, "Hey, you want to go see me kick some ass?"
That guy's funny.
No, but so you see Sully is gonna make a phone call. He basically picks the Sully inside the actual phone booth, rips it out, lifts it above his head, and then tosses it. Flips it. It's like anytime they can, they want to show you basically that he's pretty much Lou Ferrigno Hulk, just throwing things. It is hilarious. It's funny. Like you said, you point out, that Vernon, his character Bennett, he's got to go to a dad bod. Even though he's got the same height, as Arnold, but when they show Arnold, dude, when they show his arms, you see his legs. It's like the dude is ripped. It's like this is what you expect from a superhero. His physique.
Oh yeah.
And then you go up against dad bod, Bennett. He's like, and I love the scene at the end when he the two finally get the chance to fight, and he's like, he shoots him in the arm. He's like, "Go pop your head out." It's like, "I'll shoot you in the head." It's like, "Make it easy." He's like, but I love how Arnold's just the whole liners. He's just like, but Bennett, you don't want to shoot me. You want to take a knife in your hand, just sink it into my flesh. It's like, and you see how this Bennett gets orgasmic face. He's just like, I'll show you. He's like this, and then like this. And then she's like,
and I'm done. Now, Pixel, one thing I want to point out is because, we do a lot of different things here on the Xtreme Movie Show, but you and I have covered a few different TV shows together, and one of them, of course, was Prisoner. And The Prisoner with Patrick McGowan, I think at least half of it's probably some of the best TV it's ever heard, and the other half is, as I like to call it, jazzy fistfights, and you know exactly what I'm referring to. But one of the key differences between that and our James Bond franchise movie review that we do periodically in order is that we talked about the differences of how the James Bond movies are Playboy fantasy, and The Prisoners were more intellectual. He doesn't use sort of a gun here. When you're watching Commando and you compare it to the stuff that's out here today, I mean, are you shocked or do you think it's silly or stupid? I mean, I want you to give it to us. So tell us what you really feel about it.
So when it comes to action movies, Commando is certainly an action movie. Yep. It is the heightened version of every 80s action movie. Honestly, I'm surprised they even bothered to continue after, because there's everything that you love in those, like Die Hard. There's not, I mean, I guess you could say Predator too, really. But in all of those, it's all in this to excess, a ridiculous amount of excess. It's one of the telling things is the review, which says, what this movie lacks in overall plot, it makes up for in the one-liners. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's enjoyable, but it's just action. And yeah, I mean, to the point that you have the side character that joins along, what's her name? Cindy. And she is one of the most irritating elements of this film. She's screaming and crying, and I'm surprised she isn't throwing up. Oh, she did throw up.
She's a damsel in distress.
But she's not supposed to be, because the daughter's the damsel in distress.
It's the 80s.
No, she is supposed to be that way. She's supposed to hot girl that at the end falls in love with him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's there, but
she's basically
they made her so annoying throughout it that I couldn't stand her.
Well, that was the whole thing. Imagine having the kid
Exactly.
the whole entire time. The kid would have been annoying too.
What-
Her character basically is attacked by this guy. He's a creep, you know. He basically ripped her seats out. That's why she goes
I
to
was
security
there.
guards. Yeah,
I saw that. I'm telling you.
but she gets better though. After the whole thing with Sully, she gets better.
She learns how to not be a wuss.
Wait a second.
No, after the whole thing was Sully, she gets worse. Her highlight was the hotel scene where she's like, "Oh, I'm room service." That was great, and then she goes back to screaming and crying and all of that. It's really just
Pixel. You'll
yeah.
be screaming and crying like a bitch too.
Wait a minute. So what was smoking hot in the 80s is now annoying in current year. No wonder current year sucks.
I know this is what we deal with here on Xtreme Movie.
She was hot. I'm not saying she wasn't. She wasn't hot when she was there on the beach.
It's like this. So in the 80s, if it was an action film, they didn't muck it up with a friggin' romance plot like this crap. Okay, they kept that stuff to the side. So that's why once it's at the end of the film, it's okay. Then boom, roll credits. Right? As I always say, 10 to midnight. Boom, shoot the guy, roll credits. Just no love interest in that. But I want to bring up how we've talked about older guys, Pixel, when we did our Twin Peaks review of all the episodes. How we talked about was it Robert Forster, I think, who was the sheriff who played his brother. How he's just got an old tough guy persona. But Eric, this brings up to me a guy that was a character actor for a long time that you may have some thoughts on. His name was it William Smith? He played Conan's father at the beginning, telling him about the Riddle of Steel, but he was also in the fist fight with Clint Eastwood and all that. He was a bodybuilder, big jack dude.
Oh yeah.
Vernon Wells, William Smith. There's a lot of guys in there that were bodybuilders that turned actors, so they're very comfortable with their bodies. And those are the type of guys we sort of grew up on. And even somebody that might have been slight of stature, like a Bronson, had a legitimate tough guy background. And you can even argue that with Steve McQueen too, who was an exercise hound, but not really the biggest guy ever. So I find it interesting that like the action heroes that I see today on TV, I just laugh at, and it's like what Bennett would say if the Matrix would see you guys here, you laugh at you all. I mean, do you have any thoughts on Will Smith or action heroes from back then to now?
Well, I prefer William Smith to Will Smith.
No doubt about it.
Because if William Smith smacks Kid Rock, he ain't getting up.
Exactly.
Keep his wife's name out.
I think say it like Crawley. I think the difference is tough guys, action heroes in our generation and the one that preceded ours was most of them were military veterans. Some had fought in actual wars. Life was harder. A 35-year-old looked 60, and they were legitimately tough. It's the difference between like some bodybuilders have show muscles, some have move that car out of the way if you need that parking spot without a tow truck muscles. And I think that's why the William Smiths and the like Bronsons, they were legitimate tough guys because life was tougher in those days. And they may not have had, I mean, they may not have, learned their craft at, an acting school. They literally, the old school of hard knocks, literally. So I think that's why those guys just came across more believable and more authentic than what we see today a lot.
You look at this movie when he said, where are we going? Shopping. It's pretty much he pulled the Grand Theft Auto. We're going into the Army Supply store, and we're just gonna. I'm like, how's he gonna get in there? I'm like, because he's been basically first when he climbed in the hangar before, he just ripped the paneling off with his bare hands. Now he just gets a bulldozer. He must have hot wired it, or the guy let the key in there somehow, and he just bowls right through the gate and everything. Surprisingly, there was no alarm at all. If there was, it might have been a silent alarm. But eventually the cops do show up though, and it's just like. I was expecting him to the kick the paddy wagon door open or something like that, but instead they rely on her for comedy to basically fire the 2 of the missiles of the only 4 he has because he count later. That's the one thing he didn't have enough infinite ammo of was the missile for the rocket launcher. He only had 2.
Yeah,
but he had infinite grenades, infinite just machine gun ammo.
And you can tell this was an 80s action movie. Well, it had action, but if this movie were made today, the Radon Chong character would have absolutely started taking over.
Oh,
and,
definitely.
and
Yeah.
reducing Matrix to a buffoon.
Yes.
And there'd be a ton of CGI. There'd be no mall. There'd be some bad music in here. You know, a lot of 80s films, of course, would even get more poppy and commercial from this point on with the hardcore soundtracks, because that actually became a thing rather than having a symphonic orchestra like a lot of movies and TV shows did. And I think one of the interesting things, too, about this movie, when I look at it as a pivotal point in the 80s, because it is 85, we're halfway through it, we see a lot of things get a lot more vanilla and mainstream. And it's amazing. You just go back a couple years earlier and you talk about some of the best action adventure movies, like Indiana Jones, for example. I mean, to this day, most people put that in their top 2, 3, 4, at least, if not number one, for that type of an action film. And here, it's not about the violence because it's cartoonish and buffoonish in a way. It's nothing that you wouldn't have seen on an old Bugs Bunny Roadrunner type cartoon. And Pixel, you and I always have a loving affair when we talk about canon classic movies, because any sort of canon movie we saw you could put it in a time capsule and say, oh, this captured something about the 80s, whether it was breakdancing, whether it was Gymkhana, whether it was all these different things that we've covered, and there's still a lot more. But this one, I go, it's pivotal because at the time you go, okay, Arnold's not Conan, he's not sword, he's not beating people up. Now it's just all guns. And you and I talked the exact same thing about Chuck Norris. He got to a point where he hardly did that anymore. And then after this would be like, the Hitman in the early 90s, and then, of course, Walker, Texas Ranger. And after that, it's like, oh my God, we realized what a short window there was with this type of an action film. That was just fun and kind of silly violence that you didn't look at and go, oh my God, that's so graphic, or it's so over the top, like stupid horror movies or the CGI. I mean, and you're always big to talk about practical effects. I mean, I don't know. I still think this movie holds up today. It's still a lot of fun to watch. What do you think?
I think it is pivotal as well. I think that it is, like I said, it is the action movie. It's surprising that anything else got made because it's everything to a surplus to such an extreme that it's surprising that a movie like Die Hard came 4 years later and it was that's better than this. I just feel like I get a little more from something like that. I don't appreciate how thin the plot is.
So I gotta ask Pixel, and don't you guys help him? Did you recognize the guy who, when they were flying the plane, he told him to get out of the airspace? He was trying to contact General Kirby when they're in the seaplane. Did you recognize the guy?
No, I can't remember.
Wow.
That does remind me, actually, one of the first people that we see in the movie, Rob, they're standing in the room. It's actually Ben Horn's brother, Jerry.
Yeah. I told
Jerry
you that's
Horn's
when we did Twin Peaks and we reviewed every episode of movie. I told you, this is a guy that was the scumbag in Commando and a bunch of other stuff. And he played such a crappy little character. Who was the guy you were talking about, RDV, the pilot?
Well, Bill Paxton.
That's right.
That's
right. As he was blowing up
in the shit. Yeah, on the Navy cruiser. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing about 1985. I'm pulling up the top 10 action movies in 1985, right? And Commando, of course, is right up there. You got Rambo: First Blood Part 2. You've got Death Wish 3. You've got Silverado, which a lot of people love. Enemy Mine, which whatever, it's not bad, but a lot of people love that. Avenging Angel, because there was an Angel movie, high school girl by day, prostitute Avenger at night kind of thing. They were popular. And of course, RDV, you and I covered Yes, Madam from 1985 too. And that's a great action movie. That was one of Michelle Yeoh's earlier films, and Cynthia Rothrock, of course.
Yep.
And I'm like, think about how long it's been since we've had 5 to 10 really good action movies that were like fisticuff type things or big type explosions. Have we even had that in the past couple years?
Well,
you take the Mission Impossible as a Matrix or John Wick's out of it, you don't have any of them really.
Well, we had fisticuffs this last night,
and that would be
something that it does on this channel. When we get bids, we get up to fisticuffs.
Oh brother!
I know. It's. No. I'm just saying.
Are slim.
But anyway, you're right. The last time we had a solid action movie, and John Wick is, it's basically if you took Commando but made him reload, and he was much skinnier. and didn't have a kid.
And he didn't have an annoying side character to deal with.
Someone muzzle him. One thing you can tell how much action movies or the idea of action movies have changed from 1985 to today. Could you imagine if in 1985 someone would have said, "There's going to be a woman. She's probably like 5 years old now, but someday we're going to give her control of the Indiana Jones franchise. We're going to give her we're going to have her give her a lot of control of the Star Wars franchise, and then we're going to give her Tomb Raider, and she's going to inject feminism into all of it." And I say you couldn't have conceived of that, but the reason why this woman keeps getting to do those things is because that's what they think audiences want now, because that's the audience they've been cultivating for the last 30 years.
Dave's right. The comic books movies pretty much killed action movies.
It didn't help, but
it really basically
Top Gun proved you can still do it if you don't forget that the idea of an action movie is to entertain and be fun.
Yes.
That's what Commando did in spades.
Now, one of the things that's different too, I think, is that, like, for example, I've been watching recently Bloodhounds on Netflix, which is a Korean show, I believe, and it's subtitled, and it's about two guys that I want to say they're boxers, not kickboxers, and they actually meet into early on. We see them fight, and the choreography is very good. Yes, you can tell that they're missing a little bit in some shots, but they're one of those things that I like, were those long extended takes, and they end up becoming really good buddies, but things happen, they get involved in some gang stuff or whatever, and over there they don't use guns at all. So I've been watching this over the weekend going, okay, it's compelling enough to watch it where it's somewhat wholesome, where nobody seems to really die, and you definitely don't see graphic violence in it, but you'll have like a 5 to 10 minute action sequence, and it's almost one single shot with very little editing, and it's very well choreographed. And we pointed out some of those differences over the years in the different types of action movies that we've covered in martial arts films and styles, and I just go, wow, this reminds me of an 80s type show, because they're enjoying working together. It is a bit of a bromance, nothing to it or whatever. There's no overt political messaging going on it, and they're entertaining the audience, and the shots are nice and they're simple. And I thought, wow, here's a show where, at least so far, almost all the way through, they've incorporated simple storytelling. They know it's about setting up the whole episode with the characters, so something has to get resolved through action at the end, whether it's a fist fight, whether it's using sashimi knives and having a fight and making it look real. Again, no guns. There's a car chase or two. There's a foot chase or two. So the variety is there in all these episodes, and it's refreshing in something like Bloodhounds to go, it's been almost 40 years since Commando's come out, and people forget that. Again, to your point, Eric, have fun with it, entertain, and unfortunately, something with John Wick, you're overwhelmed by how intense and how technically expert a lot of the scenes are and creative they're shot, but it gets to be a bit one notice, is the way I've always described them. And let's be honest, as unrealistic as Commando is, John Wick just seems even more video game-ish. And with the exception of an outlier like Hardcore Henry, a few different point of view type shots or films or parkour stuff, there's really not been that much unique or different or even done well that's like a fist fight. When have you had two people having a legitimate fist fight that looks good? You haven't. So it's
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, and you guys will probably correct me here because I don't really pay attention or watch most of them, but all these Marvel and action films, these comic book films, I know they have action in them, but honestly, am I wrong in saying that they're not an action film? That, to me, they're like a fantasy. It's like, if somebody's big, you can kind of almost tell and feel what it would be like to throw them around, or the explosions and guns. But when you have all these powers and different things, there's no real frame of reference that you can draw upon, I think, to appreciate it like you can when people are just beating the shit out of each other. You know what I'm saying?
You're not wrong, but the whole idea of superheroes is that if I would like to see one good knockdown, drag out fight in a superhero movie. I don't know that we've ever gotten one, but something you said, I'm going to defend John Wick to the point to where in 1984, when I'm sure Commando was shot and was released in 85 or whatever, whichever year it was, remember how primitive video games were at that time.
Yeah.
So that might be the only reason why this didn't resemble a video game, is video games hadn't caught up to live action yet. So
Yeah,
I'm sure if
yeah.
it probably, I mean, video games probably wish they could have been like Commando when this came out, because it was just so, like I said, everything was so over the top. And there, I'm sure you watch this movie now for the first time. Hell, I don't know if Pixel plays video games, but he was probably looking for the reset button, a couple times to start the action over again at the compound, or like, if I do it a second time, maybe he doesn't eat the green beret for breakfast, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he had the Playboy playmate that was in there in the bed with the guy. But the fact they actually, I look at the credits, they actually credit her as like girl in bed. It's like Ada Carroll or something, or Eva Carroll or something. But then I was looking also too. I was like, the flight attendant, Vicky, I guess her name is. I trying to figure out where I know her from. She's Tila in Masters of the Universe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Scott Bakula's wife.
Gotcha.
Yeah. She's been on NCIS, I think New Orleans. Yeah. So it's like, so there are other characters in here, even though they have minor roles, but they actually, these are somewhat known people. So, I mean, Masters of the Universe is pretty huge, but I don't really know anybody who's like, oh, that's Chelsea Field, it's Tila. But if I saw her in the movie as Tila, dude, yeah, I know it's her. But it's like, we got Billy Duke in here too. His character is another one I like. It's like, he's not really that. He's ruthless, but he's not that. I don't want to say he's not stupid either. But I mean, like, he doesn't have the dad bod. He's got that going up on Bennett.
Yeah,
but their whole fight scene, and he comes in and then like he shoots some. He's like, and then as they tackle through the room, and the girl's screaming and the guy's cowering in the girl's arm. That was hilarious too. You see Billy Duke. He gets up, he goes and fires bullet. He fires all his 6 shots. He's got the revolver. He's like, fuck you, motherfucker. He fires, click. And I love it. Like Arnold's like, no, fuck you.
You're talking about where you've seen some of these other people from.
Yeah.
You recognize where you had seen Sully just 2 years earlier? Did that car door hurt? That looked real painful when you ran into it like that. Remember that when he opens the car door and he's running?
Yep.
Yeah, that was, he had a tough couple of years there.
Yeah, David Patrick Kelly.
Does anybody look more like a worm than that guy?
I kept thinking. I kept thinking that was the guy from was it Dream? No, it was a Dream Warrior. It was the one with it's the one with Dennis Quaid, where he had Dreamscape.
Oh, Dreamscape. Okay.
I kept thinking that was the same guy, but no, he's Warriors. Come on, play.
Yep.
So and he's also in The Crow. He's in Last Man Standing, Flag of Our Fathers. But on Twin Peaks, you said is Jeremy Horn.
Mm-hmm.
This guy.
Yeah.
Oh wow! A lot of movies I haven't seen apparently.
Yeah.
It was the later Twin Peaks, the one that came out a few years ago on Showtime. It's like his brother. They introduced him in.
Ray Donovan.
Mm-hmm.
So that. John Wick Chapter 2. So I mean, he's a little pipsqueak, only 5'6". So you put him next to Arnold. That's why he looks so small. He's able to. He's like, I'm holding you, but let you know, Sully, I'm holding you with my bad arm, my weak arm.
See, now here's where her modern day movies would ruin Commando. They would have said, we're going to remake Commando. We own the rights. We're going to put somebody. They would get somebody that's big, but not necessarily imposing, like say Jason Momoa, right? Perfect example. He's already screwed up Conan, and he might be a big guy, but Momoa's all about popping himself in a film rather than adding to it, in my opinion. And so what they would do is they'd give a backstory to Bennett. And even though we can hint in the 80s that the story is that him and Arnold were buddies, and Arnold was able to, through the love of his daughter and family life and Father's Day and all that crap, become a normal civilized human being. It totally ignored the fact that all the trauma in the serious films like Rambo that were out there talking about Vietnam War, nobody in the 80s wanted to talk about or bring up. That's why First Blood is just criminally underrated, even though it's a great film just by itself. The whole Vietnam PTSD thing was huge, and coming out to play, even in professional sports too. If you think of Jim McMahon there, Eric. So they would give a backstory to Bennett in today's current world, and it would be boring, and it wouldn't be fun, and it would be CGI, and you're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I know this is tongue in cheek. I know it's goofy, and they're just trying to outdo each scene that they build up for each other to the one big battle. And you got to go through all the goons till you get to the sub boss, till you get to the final lair. And this movie just encapsulates everything about what we think of when it comes to an action film, especially all these 80s tropes, or whatever that word is that people like to use that I hate saying. But it's true. You got the unlimited ammo that we talked about. You got the godly physique. You've got the cheesy one-liners. You've got the damsel in distress. It is like a video game caught on film, and it's done in a spectacular 80s fashion. It's fantastic.
I just looked up David Patrick Kelly's thing. He was in Dreamscape. He was the guy in there, the bad guy in there.
There you go.
He's also in 48 Hours.
It's Luther. You got the car door smashed on.
There is Beverly Hills Cop is also in there too as well.
He played a weasel. Yeah. There's a couple guys that played weasels in the 80s, and they were all around. He was one of them. There's another guy too from that early 80s TV show with that West character, and he played a weasel in there too.
He's same year. Same year as Commando. He's on Miami Vice.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one guy. I think you're talking about if they ever remade Commando. I think there's one guy that I've seen in the last couple of years that could become the closest to pulling it off. And the way you talked about, how the movie unfolded, it was kind of how that season unfolded. Was the guy that played Reacher,
Alan Richardson,
in the TV show, because his fights were cartoonish. A lot of them, he did quip a little bit in them, and they had to go through layers to get to the big boss, and then everybody kind of got to beat their bad guy. But that said, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, because it lacks that 80s fun, and part of it too was that you're going to go see an action movie, but like I said, I listed several names just in 85. You go through all these years, and we have plenty of our top 10 movies of such and such year of the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, that when we started the channel a few years back that we went over just to kind of get our teeth wet. And you look at the top 10 they've got versus the top 10 today, and it's like no contest. It's incredible. And one guy that I think about that I think physically has got the look, but unfortunately the modern day equivalent to this, and I wanted to kind of bring this up as one of the last things to compare Commando to here on Father's Day, is Tuesday night, RDV, you and I will be covering the second film that just came out of Extraction. And Extraction, when we covered it a while back, we talked about how the action sequences were very good, but the character has a bit of a kind of a death wish, devil may care kind of attitude, and it comes across as brutish. And honestly, that's not a thing in the 90s at all. And it didn't become a thing until, like, say, The Crow in the 90s, with people moping around and getting physically smaller. But the Thor guy, he's obviously got the physique, he's got the training, he's got the skills. And Extraction 2's got just an incredible, very long action sequence with a train, and we'll talk about all this on Tuesday night. But I go, okay, here's a guy or somebody that knows how to do action films, the way they shot it and directed it, and we were blown away by it. And so I don't know if you have had a chance to see it already, but on Tuesday night when we talk about it, I'm sure we'll make some comparisons. But I enjoyed it as much as the first one, and it might be a slight improvement just with the way they filtered some things out.
I'm saving my watch time for Monday, because when it comes to movies, I tend to forget them within a couple hours, because I'm just constantly watching stuff. So it's like it starts to blend together. So I have to go back and rewatch it. Unless it's like this. Unless it's Commando. Commando is one of those movies you can watch over and over again, and you just enjoy it. Like, people say, like, Top Gun has a lot of one-liners. So does Commando, So I mean, I like Top Gun for the planes, stuff of this, but I love Commando because of the fact it's just so over the top. It literally, like, even Rambo is more serious than this movie, and I love the fact that it isn't serious.
You can tell that Rambo is more serious because General Kirby, to me, is who was the guy in Rambo? The Richard Crenna.
Richard Crenna, yep.
He was just there to, like, walk into a scene almost like Lloyd Bridges in Airplane, and get to like, what did you see? Carnage. What if Matrix has been there? You're gonna have to order more body bags.
That's incredible. Crenna crushes it.
Yep.
And I think the Kirby character was kind of like a little bit of a send up to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
See,
Pixel,
don't-
give us the modern young person's take on the homoerotic nature of a movie like Commando.
I know
I
you
don't
can
know
put your
what the
finger
fuck you're
on it.
talking about. No, my finger goes everywhere, but I can't go on that because I didn't get that. Obviously Bennett's over the top, but no, I was going to say I don't know what it is. I get so, it's not that it's shocking violence, it's that I'm just numb to it. And that's why this movie, I guess, just doesn't hit it with me. It's not like a movie, like I said, like Die Hard, but what I get more of is, I don't know if y'all saw it a few years ago, there was a really terrible movie with The Rock called Skyscraper. This feels like Skyscraper feels like if Die Hard tried more to be like Commando. I'm sorry, Eric Brain. I'm sorry.
Nope, dead. You're Niedermeyer.
Well, first of all, you're canceled because you're making fun of a guy who's crippled.
Yeah.
You saved the day with
there's
one
the
leg.
thing. The end has that line, until the next time, no chance. And there's a line that when that came, I was like, okay, yeah, I could see people quoting that. But there's a line in the movie Skyscraper that just came to mind at that moment. I turned it off and back on again. It's the same thing. It's the same feeling. I just feel numb. There's nothing there to it. It's not like yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. It doesn't have that for me, and I don't know. It just doesn't hit. I'm sorry.
He hit all the other one-liners. He said, "I'll be back."
Yeah.
Yes, he did say I'll be back earlier in the movie. But you know, the line that, oh, he's just dead tired, that's a good one. There are good ones in this. I'm not saying there's not. It's just that there's so many, it all starts to...
Are you kidding? That's the whole point in Arnold's catalog.
But that's not to me. Not to me. I need a measure. I need a measure between it.
I think you're just spoiled.
Yeah, because okay, so let's talk about The Rock for a second, because people say, oh, he's a big time action star. He makes a lot of movies. Most of them are CGI, and yeah, he might do a lot of those stunts, and he does have a good physique. The dude's jacked to the gills. He's probably gonna have a heart attack here soon. And honestly, I just, his movies are not exciting. You talk about Skyscraper or a lot of the others, they're just, you know, probably his best, most fun role to me was in The Other Guys, when him and Samuel Jackson jump off the building and kill each other accidentally, being stupid. The Rock does not know how to be an action star. In that he doesn't. Arnold is in on the joke. He knows how people see him. He knows what this movie is going to be about, and then the next one after that, and then the next one after that. He's got that self-awareness thing, and that's how he's able to be tongue-in-cheek and make fun of themselves. Somebody like The Rock does not have that.
But it's
not sure he's allowed to.
It's not even like because it's not, oh, this is just my first time seeing an Arnold movie. It's not. I've seen plenty of them, and I've enjoyed all of those. But this one just, I don't know.
Did you watch them all through? No. You only watched part of them.
I only did Commando that last year, and you're not one to talk about skimming through movies, man. Man. But no, it's.
Do you think Wonder Woman's a better action film than Commando?
Absolutely not.
You also got to realize how
but I think the plot makes up for the lack of action. There's more of a plot in Wonder Woman than Commando. It's more character layers explored, and that's what this movie is supposed to be. Which is why people enjoy that, but I don't. So that's why
they have equal storytelling. His daughter gets kidnapped. They want him to kill this president, but he refuses not to. So he basically kills this guy, and he has a limited amount of time before they find out that they killed the other guy. The guy was supposed to take him over to that place, and now he's trying to stop Sully from alerting them, and then he's trying to track down where his daughter is. And along the way, he basically recruits this woman, whether she wants her or not. He pretty much kidnaps her. Forced her.
I saw the movie. Yes. I saw both the movies.
So then you know they have a plot.
Yes, you could also argue that Commando is a statement, even though this is a tongue-in-cheek kind of goofy-ass action movie. You could also say it's a got a little bit to do with exploring how the CIA and the FBI and just America in general, and some would argue Ronald Reagan specifically, the man of the 80s, somehow allowed all this dictatorship to get overrun in Central American countries, which was definitely a thing that happened. And, unless you're a fan of like the Warren Commission or the Church Report from the 70s, you're not going to know that this stuff was going on. But that's why everyone always says in the 80s, how were they able to go to Central America and just go get drugs and this and that? Nobody ever really explores it. And here it's about a tyrant and another little small, whatever that word they used to call this compromised country and all that too. But that's not central to the plot, but it's there. And that was the thing.
It's not what they're exploring here, and that's fine that it's not. But what it is, it's just like a video game, like an old school video game where they didn't really want to flesh it out. But John Wick has world building that makes up. Not really. Yes, it does, and I could go into a full thing about the world.
Would you have liked it? Would you have liked it better if they'd killed Matrix's dog?
And then he has to go. Then he gets.
What are you talking about? Did Matrix have a dog?
No, but would you have liked it better? And I'm gonna, in keeping in the realm of dictators, you will forever be Generalissimo Francisco Franco to me.
But
Rob
see, it's simply just I don't. It was nothing to me. Like, it was all action and one-liners, and that's fun.
So it's basically all like the MCU, action and then just weak jokes.
No, because those have stories for characters, and that's supposed to matter. But in this, it's just, so it is what it is.
So
we spent the last half hour talking about that's why this movie is great.
So
it's just not great to me.
You're saying the problem is the fact that it's a guy's movie. It's all about action and having fun.
Okay, how about when we do this next year? We'll do it like a soap opera. We'll do like a soap opera. Today, the part of Professor Pixel will be played by somebody cool.
Yes, this roll of toilet paper named Toilet will be the new Pixel.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing: we're all poking at Pixel and all that, but he's given his opinion. He's the odd man out, and I've certainly in that position a lot too. But let me ask you this, Pixel, as we get ready to close up for the night. Was there something about this movie, and I'm not trying to sound sarcastic here or bemoaning, but again, when I talk about you being the young 20-something in a chat, and there's a generation or two between some of us, that's what makes this, what we do here on the Xtreme Movie so interesting, because not only do we have a global audience and a lot of comments with people coming in about different things, a lot of people with Treat, a lot of people have been watching Casablanca and other things. I see all the messages every day. Was there something about Commando that as you're watching it, even though you recognize it and go, okay, I can see why this is good, and even though it's not for me, was there something about the film that you go, I don't get it, like it didn't make sense? Or like I don't mean that like you didn't intellectually understand it because you're not stupid, but like culturally speaking, because this is almost a generation removed from you.
No, I understand why it's so big. I do. It's everything that I have to repeat the same statement.
It's senseless violence.
It's everything that an 80s action movie is to the extreme, to the excess, and that's just. It's a little too much for me. It's not that I can't handle violence, but when he dropped the guy off the roof, that was good. But I just didn't feel anything. It exists. It is a movie.
I would say that guy's a little bit numb too. He felt,
huh?
But you felt it in Wonder Woman. I don't understand.
Wonder Woman's a different story. I don't know why you're. Are you talking about this because of how I felt about Wonder Woman 2 in 1984? 1984 is kind of just like comic book fun, and it's to the comic book extreme, yes. But I'm closer to comic books, so I guess maybe that's why I enjoyed it a little more. I didn't see the reason it got the hate that it did. I didn't say anybody should hate Commando. I said that I didn't enjoy it.
You know why the people in Wonder Woman 1984 were so happy? Because they knew in just 1 year the GOAT of movies was coming out.
And Wonder Woman too. I'm not obviously she's a gorgeous gal and all that too. I think she's a horrible actress. She's like a paper bag to me. That's it's like really she just has no personality. The thing with Arnold, you look at the landscape. You got other guys that are physically tough, and of course I'd mentioned a couple of people earlier. But when I think of like what was going on, you had, of course, Stallone. You had Schwarzenegger himself. You had Chuck Norris. You had we've covered Jeff Speakman and all the martial arts guys with Van Damme and all that from the mid to later '80s. Seagal had a nice little run there too. Let's not forget him, regardless of what you think. They all had personality, and it was identifiable, and you knew what kind of film you were going to have. And I guess that's one of my issues too that I try to resolve with the current 20-year plus reign of comic book movies, is regardless of the source material and the history and background, they're all the same.
I wanna agree with Dave. Commando pretty much is a war comic. It's basically Punisher.
A lighthearted one, right?
Well, yeah, it's not much gore, but he's going around killing. He's a one-man army. You can't stop him. And Bennett, because even Bennett, he sets it up for the villager watching. He's like, dude, like, yeah, he's gonna come back here anyway. He's gonna want to fight no matter what,
Right.
And then the guy says, like, you're Bennett, you're the one that's scared because you got to go there. He's like, nah, bro, I'm looking forward to it. So I said, this is basically, yeah, you're right. It is a video game movie. John Wick is a video game movie. Basically, when you have endless amount of guys coming at you and you're one guy, and whether you're reloading or not reloading, the fact that you don't die in the first wave, it's a video game movie.
I'll bring up this one last point, and I want you guys to kind of give your thoughts on that, and then we'll go around for our final thoughts here too. But Eric, I'll start with you just because you and I are closer to age, and RDV's in the middle there. I think one of the things too that doesn't get talked about with Commando, and let's just think of the name Commando. We're talking about John Wick and everything else there too. Today, if you see any sort of action movie, it's like, yeah, I was in Fallujah, or I was in Baghdad, or Afghanistan, and that's really the extent of it. When you talk about the 80s, it's pretty much the last decade where you had an affinity for people that served, and it was a big deal, and it was a badge of honor, and that whole structure being in the military was considered a sign of respect. And even though we're talking about a goofy action film here, when you talked about Richard Crenna, when you talked about all this other stuff, it was a big deal that you were a person that served in the military and that you did all that. So Commando, it's a movie that you go, hey, you know what? This is one of the great movies of the 80s, that just to say how much of a badass you could be if you went to the armed services. And of course, Top Gun would be like the Air Force, right? That does not exist at all in today's films, and haven't for a long time. So, I mean, Eric, like I say, you and I are closer to the same age with Vietnam and all the war stuff that would start, happen and show up in films. Do you see that as like a big reason why action films aren't popular today, or what?
Well, I mean, you think about it, the last really Vietnam is kind of like the last big one. I think that was bigger than, say, the Gulf War 20 years later.
Yeah,
absolutely. Which is more or less, going in and out in comparison. I mean, Vietnam drug on for years. Now, when you see these movies in the 80s, like, Arnold was in the military, you kind of get the feeling that they weren't in Vietnam because this was a fictional universe, but wherever they served, things were just large and grandiose. And just because, I mean, I said there's nothing about this that's really rooted in any kind of reality. But to the point about I do get your point, and I do think being in the military mattered more then, certainly, than it does now, because there's something, even if I'm right and it was just a fictional conflict that these guys served in, if you want to make it the real world, Vietnam was a real thing. It was ugly, and but there was, I think we may not have appreciated it at the time, or even like the first 10 years after that. But I think people that went through it, there's more of an appreciation for them now. And maybe even by the time this came out, I don't know. But I do see what you're getting, even if I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it.
I mean, the 80s was the last decade where people were big on High on America.
Oh, definitely. No doubt.
If I may, I will say, I'm not sure that obviously the military is a huge part of this movie. I mean, all the characters that die in the beginning were a part of it. But when it comes to Arnie, his whole thing in the movie is that he's done with that life. He's left that life behind. He wants to just be with his daughter, and that's all that matters, even to the end. So I'm not sure there's a real pride in his service. Like, he's not ashamed of it, which he
So what I'm
shouldn't
saying,
be.
Pixel, is,
But
for example, you went, there was, after the 70s and starting early 80s when Reagan came in, after a year or two, economy started to turn around. People said, yeah, America's best. America's number one. We're the best country on earth. And damn it, they were happy of it. They had pride of it. There was just a certain sense of, can-doism. I hate, it sounds real like I'm cheerleading here a little bit, but there was definitely an energy into it. So when people would see somebody like Schwarzenegger, who actually, in a lot of ways, and again, it's not a political show here, he embodies a lot of the American spirit. He came over here, couldn't speak the language. He busted his ass, worked really hard, made himself one of the best in weightlifting and bodybuilding, really technically, if you want to get into it, and then transitioning over into that. Plus, he was a millionaire in real estate before he even did stuff. So the guy was like, hey, this motherfucker, this guy, this Arnold, who's not even American, came over here. He did it the right way, like an American would do it. Damn it, we can celebrate and have fun. So yeah, we're going to love these cheesy one-liners. And oh, by the way, we'll go watch this movie later or that movie. People enjoyed the fact that, damn it, this is a movie that's showing how great Americanism can be, through a silly action film or whatever. Like
85 was the start of the patriotic movies. You had Delta Force, you had Mission, or was it Invasion USA?
You had Dawn, for God's sakes.
Oh my gosh, there's just so many action movies, patriotic action movies coming out. American Ninja, all that stuff coming out. Honestly, this is a movie that you would go and you would just either, if you didn't enjoy it, you didn't say anything because you get your ass kicked. Because everybody loved this movie. Clearly, it's like people who don't like Star Wars. You really don't say anything about that, because there's a lot of nerds that like Star Wars. You kind of just want to walk away. And but overall,
what do you mean? Rob says it all the time.
But overall, well, that's because he's behind the camera, or he's not. But I want to point out, though, Pixel, I am very happy that you chose to be silly because you are a weasel. For not liking this. You need to relax,
I have something else real quick. I said, this will tell you. Yeah, it's like the last decade that we really promoted America first, best, etc.
Eagle, yeah. Yeah, also.
I got these tickets from one of my college professors because when I was in college in the 80s, my sociology professor, the first thing he said before he even told us his name was, I hate Ronald Reagan. Reagan had just been elected. He was salty. But no professor I had in the John Belushi amount of time I was in college, and yes, those went down the drain too, did I get any anti-American sentiment. Juxtapose that with today. And like I said, a college professor gave me tickets to Commando.
No, the only reason that John Matrix was retired is because he wanted to spend time with his daughter. Obviously, he doesn't have a wife. She must have passed away or whatever. He's a single father. Where Rambo was more a serious take on Vietnam. This was more of just let's be the best damn father I can. And so this is Father's Day. He wanted to, he'd go to any length. He's the ultimate warrior. American soldier. Now, if you put Rambo and John Matrix in a movie together, Rambo would just bitch and moan. Where John be like,
insufferable.
John be like, it's like, do you do anything other than just complain about, oh, we got to lift our guys behind? And John's like, get off your ass, let's go get them. So you can see it's just really as big as a patriotic film, but the fact that they actually had they were just pro America going and just stomping out another dictator, who wants to basically, he's a terrorist, and he's Arab. He's supposed to be Hispanic or Arab, but no, he's not, So today it'd be the white man. Oh, his white privilege. No, you should be supporting that guy. You should be supporting the other dictators.
Well,
why are we involved?
Here's another thing: is it the two guys at the beginning of the movie? The guy that thought the trash guys missed him. Don't worry, we won't. Sorry. And the guy, and the other guy who might have been Sully's big brother because he was a weasel too. Probably deserved to get run through the car dealership window. But no innocent people died in this movie.
No.
And
That is
again,
true.
because this
Good
is
guys
kind
and
of
bad
like an
guys.
action comedy, because you can there was nothing to take you out of it by, because like I said, my only gripe with the first Shazam movie was they killed a room full of innocent people, and the rest of it's just like the rest of it's very family friendly, except for if you don't remember they killed a boardroom full of innocent people. So that's another thing that made because I think Commando is an action comedy.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, and to me, it worked on every level. Again, I'm going to defend the freakishly long-fingered one and say it also helps to have been.
So,
I mean, it's of its time, and if your time didn't come for 15 years after the movie was even made, I can see why it doesn't hold the same.
I gotta ask. You just said you don't like Shazam because they killed her.
No. I said that. It just took a little bit away from it for that reason.
Yeah. So would you agree that the board members at Oscorp being killed by Osborn they were innocent too?
In what?
In the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Oh, I can't remember that far back. I'm lucky I can remember this morning.
You threw a pumpkin bomb in there and he
But I don't consider Spider-Man
fall.
a comedy either.
That's true.
And Shazam was supposed to be kind of like family friendly type of
yeah.
It just like in the original Avengers filming, Loki that ballroom they're in, Loki slaughters everybody. Then they forgot, they cut that out, but they forgot that when they said, he's have a care, that's my brother. Well, he did kill 84 people. He's adopted. That's the people. That's the 84 people they were talking about. They cut the scene, but forgot to, cut the line because they wanted the punchline.
Yeah.
But at least you didn't see the people getting killed.
Yeah, but so, I mean, there were games not really based off of this, but there was Contra. I think it was the big one for the Nintendo.
Command, Contra, a bunch of them. Then you start getting your street fighting games a lot too, and your Double Dragons and all sorts of things too. Yeah, I mean, it was just if you were in an arcade in the mall in the 80s, man, all the stuff was like that. And again, a variety there too. You go to any of these throwback malls like that we have here in Central Florida, I should say throwback arcades. It's kind of like what Stranger Things has done in movies, is that they've thrown 80s music in there, but without a lot of forethought other than let's have a song that comes out this year, like Madonna or whatever too, like the one song that got really hot this last season on Stranger Things. It's like, okay, you throw a Pac-Man in an arcade, you think everybody thinks you know what was like in the 80s. Well, no, you're too young, you didn't grow up in it, so how the hell do you know? You didn't live it.
I gotta point out, like they just had to instrumentals music in this till the very end, and then you get Power Station, Andy Taylor. We Fight for Love, which is like the best song in the whole entire movie. It's like that's the credits song, I guess, because that was a big thing in the 80s too. Your credits song.
Yeah, that's true. The credit songs, you're right, and that was a big deal to get music placed on that too. That was huge.
The fact that they didn't have an opening credit song with like that was interesting too, because that's sometimes a lot of 80s. You see some it was probably the later movies in the 80s. They actually had opening songs, but there was another one. Was it a Vision Quest? Had Journey. Opening. Yeah.
Only the Young.
The Young. That's
great song.
So I was surprised that this one didn't have any other normal songs. It just had orchestral soundtracks.
Yeah. So I'm going to touch upon two moments that are seemingly unrelated, and they might be. When I first watched Back to the Future,
beer and cocaine.
What?
Yes, Back to the Future.
It starts with the song. We all know the song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our Love.
Okay.
Yes.
I did not like that. I like the song now, but I still felt that it was just in the movie for some reason, just because. That's how I felt about the song at the end of this, and I actually didn't care for the song.
All right,
but-
you're gone.
Here's what happened with.
But the music throughout the film, it's fluctuating between so loud you can barely that you can barely pay attention, and then it quiets down whenever they're actually throwing a line in there. The sound mixing of this film is also
So it's like every movie there is and TV show. Whenever they talk,
No.
they quiet that's everything else, and then it gets louder.
yeah. Well, that would
I'll
see the
comment on
difference
those two
is I
things.
don't think the music is annoying.
There's ever since the mid to late 90s compression and things being put together like that, the mixes have been horrible, and it really depends, because even if you're watching on Netflix or Prime or whatever and you got a great connection, sometimes that's not coming in too well. It's like how music's produced today. Everything's just garbled together and you can't hear things independently, and it's horrible and it's trashy. There obviously was an island music theme going on in this when they were going over there, and they did go back and forth. And the 80s did experiment, honestly, with not only getting as bombastic as they can with everything, but at the same time, say for the Power of Love, I even go a year later and I'll go into Top Gun. I'll go with Berlin's Take My Breath Away. You couldn't go 1 hour without hearing that a minimum of 4 times on any pop station. And so back then, Huey Lewis had its audience. Some people don't like Huey Lewis because they had a harmonica and they were just like really light rock and roll kind of pop that like your dad would like maybe. They weren't classic rock, certainly. No, I'm dead serious, because again, the music, it was a big deal in the 80s, not just the variety, but they were experimenting with placing that in it. And so this was a combined effort for like, okay, how can we do this in this movie here and make it big? And so they combined that with Huey Lewis's and the record release for it, and that thing blew up. Because I'm telling you, in early '86, that movie was playing in our what we would call dollar theaters today, and it went on for months. And again, things stayed in theaters a lot longer. And Back to the Future, everybody saw it because it's wholesome, it's simple, you know it's coming, but it's it's a lot like Commando in that it sets up what you expect with a good one-liner that doesn't have to be filthy or whatever. And you know, you could joke about how cute and how fun Back to the Future is, but when you think about it, his mom's kind of a slut. You know, his uncle's a bastard dude in jail, and his mom's trying to, you know, have sex with him, and it's just people glossed over that stuff in the 80s pretty easily if they were just having fun.
Rob, you know who really did not like how much airplay "Take My Breath Away" was getting?
Probably them.
I was gonna say Phil Collins.
Yeah, Phil Collins.
That really cut into Phil Collins' time in those days.
I mean, I'm surprised Phil Collins allowed it. You know, it's like Journey. You know, they're a jazz band. All of a sudden, you know, they switch one guy, and all of a sudden they make gazillions of dollars and kick out what's his face who started the other band too before them. You know who I'm talking about. The keyboard guy, Greg Rowley or whatever. But yeah, it's amazing because all these things are intertwined and they played out. And Top Gun probably is the epitome of combining pop music of different styles and soundtracks to it. So some people actually did not like Back to the Future because they thought it was too manufactured. So Pixel, you're definitely onto something when you're talking about it, because I get it. But it was the thing. It really was.
Iron Eagle with the cassette player.
But Iron Eagle is a Canon film, right?
Yes.
So Canon played by their own rules.
yes.
Let's go around for some final thoughts here. Pixel, you're the youngest. You get to go first.
Well, you've heard my thoughts about the movie. It is the most 80s action movie that an 80s action movie can be.
That you've seen.
Yeah, no, I think overall, I'm very sure of that.
Pixel. We said to go last, but we lied.
But but I just if it's your thing, that is great. It wasn't mine, but I hope you enjoy.
Okay.
I got a feeling Pixel's gonna say like I like gore more.
Well, we'll get into some reviews
if
later.
He does. He is gone. Hasta la vista, baby.
No, work would have been good though.
Man, if you've never seen this film, you've never truly lived. You've never seen the power of Bennett letting off some steam. You've never seen what's her name? Ada Wang, is it Ada Cho Wang or was it
Radon Chong.
Radon Chong? Yeah, really, that is such a really unexpected name for her because she doesn't look like she looks like a Cindy.
Mickey Rourke would take care of that later.
Yeah, yes, I'm sure he would. Just an excellent cast in here too. Dan Hedaya as the general.
What a bad accent! I love it.
The bad accent, everything, and he's and this he's supposed to be like a knockoff of a Fidel Castro, I guess.
Yeah, that's like Carla's husband on Cheers.
Yeah, exactly right. Everything about this is like I said. This is 80s. This is this is Arnold at his best. This was the tip of the iceberg, and then he's after this huge success, he just kept pushing it all the way through True Lies and Eraser, man. Like he knew the format, kept with it. People loved it, even though they're gonna get. Before this, they really didn't see much at all. He had Terminator, which was a year before this, I believe, 84. Mm-hmm. He said 3 lines, I think the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he had Conan before that. It's just like, so seeing him on this, it's just like you didn't expect him to start making jokes. It's the guy who looked very, very serious, and then he starts making this funny jokes, and it's just like, what is going on here? And then adding on Bennett, who's supposed to be, according to the director, was supposed to be in love with Matrix, but he also hated him too. So and it's just a perfect example of a crazy person. They want approval from their daddy, but they also want to kill him. Everyone in here, I mean, Bill Duke in here was awesome in this. Their fight scene, they he's like, I eat green berries for breakfast and all. It's like it's just, I love it. I just said it was a fun cast. Unlimited ammo. It's basically what we do when we play our games back in the day. You had your Game Shark. You put in, I want unlimited ammo. It became a code. I wouldn't doubt it. It's because of the movies like this. You just want to have unlimited ammo and just blow away your enemies. Music could have been a little better. I said We Fight for Love, the Power Station, one of the best bands of the 80s.
They say the maternal instinct is the strongest driving force in all of nature, but people forget the paternal instinct of driving your DNA to the future. And so that's why I think here with Matrix, being a single father, which you never see, and of course being Arnold saving his daughter is what this movie's all about. That's what makes it a fun Father's Day film.
One more quick question. What do you guys think of him in the very beginning? He's driving his truck down the hill. He pushes it and gets in there, and then it just flips over and explodes.
Love it. Because Eric Breen, obviously special guest tonight, comes on special occasions. He would attest to the fact that one thing we haven't even yet begun to discuss here on Xtreme Movie Show is the changing of the guard, not just from fisticuffs to bullets and explosions that we have here with this movie being a very pivotal one, but also the fact that cars used to fall down and not explode, and then somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s, even in TV shows like TJ Hooker, the cars would turn over, flip, and explode and burst into flames while they're in mid-air. And that's a detail not lost on us here. But Eric, your final thoughts on this movie and Father's Day?
A couple things. Seeing Radon Chong, it's weird. I've seen Commando over double digits times now. Still don't remember her name in the movie. But I will say that looking at her and knowing who her dad is, Mrs. Dawn Chong must have been a 12. Just putting that out there. Number 2. This movie, again, the Wolverine of movies. It's the best there is at what it does, and I will brook no besmirchment from the John Cera of this panel.
Hey! Son of a bitch!
No, this was, like I said, this is fun. I watched this. I hadn't seen it in a couple of years. Watched it again the other day. I could watch it again tonight. My God, it's the Skate Town, USA of action adventure.
Exactly. And if you're looking to watch this, it's free right now on Tubi TV.
Yeah, great print. Tubi does a good job with that. I have to admit. All right, guys, that's it for us here on Father's Day 2023 as we review Commando, which is our yearly thing that we like to do. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be covering Extraction 2. So check us out for that. We'll be sending a link out here shortly for it. If you haven't seen the first one, it's okay if you watch the second one without the first one. This main character is still there, and it's kind of like an upgraded version of this in a way, but a little bit more serious, I would think. So you're going to say something, RDV?
I was going to say, look up Maxine Sneed, her mother. Wow. Move over, Foxy Brown.
Is that who her mom is?
Yeah, her mom is Maxine Sneed. Sneed.
Dave's requesting zapped. Go ahead.
You know what? I don't mind. I'll do that. I'll do zapped, and then I'll do Real Geniuses after that if you want. I don't care.
We also have New York Ninja that's been requested as well.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I can see that.
All right, anything else we need to promote, guys, before we call it?
If you like us butchering comic books, follow all three of us except for Rob over at Geeky Puppet Show.
Did anybody ask Rob if he'd bite the bullet and read one with us since we're so short-handed tonight?
Graphic Amandus actually said he wanted to read with us.
Oh, he's going to be. Wait a minute, he's got a family.
Apparently, they're done with him.
Yeah, that's.
My children, Y and Z, are waiting for me. There you go, guys. Commando, 1985. Check it out. It's a great film. It's a pleasure to have you here, Eric. Shout out to DVD Daddy, who seems like he's recovering, doing well there too. We did a review of an Excalibur for him while he was laid up. That went pretty well. And of course, Dave and everybody else here in chat checking us out, Johnny and such. It's always a pleasure when you guys spend a little bit of time with us talking about things and whatever movie we're going about. So for you guys and everybody else here involved in the panel, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, as always. Stay
Good night, kids.
So long.